together and everything. I'm really looking forward to catching up with you. So good to see you again. Welcome. And I do hope we can get contact with Reed, and we certainly want to let the people know about it. And in the audience, welcome very much to Conversations. Pleasure to welcome to the program a friend of mine in the universe and the world of science and education, and that being Carter Emmart. He's a Ph.D., and he's also the Director of Astrovisualization for the Rose Center of Earth and Space Planetarium at the American Museum of Natural History here in New York City. A major portfolio he has in terms of the educational content and of what he's doing is amazing. We've done programming in the past. Carter, so good to see you again. Welcome to Manhattan Network.
Harold, thank you very much.
It's very good. We met at a very good party again the other day, and I was able to catch up on Reed Stowe. We'll be talking about him. But share just a little bit of your background for us. We're a little bit unusual set today because we're going to be demonstrating some of the database information on the screen behind us. But share a little bit of your background, and then we want to talk about the phenomena of planetariums around the world, and then also that is, from my way of thinking, the largest video display screen that we have in the society. But share your own personal background a little bit first, please.
I was born into a family of artists, and in the early 19th...
Wait, excuse me, go talk. Oh. Reed is on the line. Okay, we're going to now, he's on the line, so you can pump it in here. We were going to have a contact with Reed Stowe, who's a very amazing fellow, and he's sailing by himself in his schooner, the Anne, on the waters of the world. I think he's been over 800 days out on the oceans of the world without any contact with resupply, and he apparently is on his iridium line calling in on the telephone. We're going to try and pipe his voice in here now. So, Willie, can you connect us with Reed out in the middle of the oceans of the world now, and maybe we could hear Reed's voice and so forth. I don't hear anything now, and so they're now calling on. Hello? Well, they're trying to connect with that. Maybe you could talk while we're waiting for that connection about Reed.
One of the things that I've known Reed for 20 years, and I met Reed at a conference that I was a sponsor at, organizer for, called The Case for Mars, and it was about what had happened to the goal of sending humans to Mars. So Reed Stowe, who had built his own boat, came to this conference in landlocked Colorado to address the issue of the duration of a Mars mission being about 3 years, to a mission that he wanted to try as an analog at sea. Namely, to stay off terra firma, or off land, stay on the ocean longer than anyone had ever done, stay out of the sight of land, no resupply, and which would be the same conditions in space, essentially, insofar as being away from the world for 3 years. And what we do, Reed has a satellite telephone and a GPS tracker. So with the planetarium, I'm able to display for an audience the world as it is seen from space, and Reed's course as it has proceeded, and then we can talk to him and see where he is on the world.
I remember Reed, beautiful guy, beautiful artist, beautiful soul.
Absolutely.
Sculptor extraordinaire.
Artist, sea captain, boat builder.
And we're waiting until we can hear him here, so let us know the status of the call. And he's been sailing. We all saw him off a couple of years ago. I guess it's about 800 days now that he's been out.
I can show his course.
Yeah, if you could show it in the background until we get it. But he was a major, he crossed, if I'm not, the North Atlantic, which is a mighty treacherous ocean, I think single-handedly, if I'm not mistaken, on a catamaran when he was 19. He's an adventurer, and he pushes the limits. He he came back and handcrafted a 70-foot gaff-rigged schooner that he called Anne, after his mother, and he's lived on that ship, or on that boat, I guess you call it. Sailed it into Antarctic water, sailed around the world. He's an adventurer that pushes the limits, and he is now been on that venture since it was April 21 that he sailed from across the river in New York out into the oceans of the world. He had Sonia with him then. She has had to be taken off some time ago and is now back in New York, a wonderful lady, and he's sailing, and as I understand, he's going to set the record for an individual. That was off Perth, Australia, that she had to come back on land, and then he's been sailing, and somewhere about 900 and some days into the voyage, he will set the record for an individual sailing on the oceans of the world, and he's doing it with no resupply or anything. And I had occasion at the Chelsea Hotel to do a program with a man who is the inductor of the people at the Explorers Club, and he confided to me that if Reed pulls it off, he is going to be right up there with the leading explorers and pushing of the limits of human endurance and so forth, right up there with Sir Edmund Hillary and so forth, and he's closing in on that. And we have apparently a telephone conversation with him. If it can be somehow put into the program and brought into our to our audience, we don't hear anything. Could somebody come from the booth and tell us if we're going to be able to hear Reed or what the status is? Willie, maybe you could come in and let us know. We have it also. Maybe you could come and turn down the lights in here. It would show a little better the course where Reed is now. This is being projected. If someone could come in here and work with us and turn down the lights so we could see the image a little better, and also fill us in on whether or not we're going to be able to. Could you come in, Melanie or Wendell? Maybe you could turn the lights down and also report on what the status of the telephone is. We've lost the connection with Reed, apparently.
Okay.
Okay. We couldn't get any. You didn't get anything, any contact with him?
No, he called, but we lost the call.
Is he likely to call back, or what? Or we lost the call? Okay. He's now. This is tracking. If you can see on the screen. And maybe they could come into that.
We see West Africa.
We see West Africa where he is,
He is just off of Senegal, essentially.
He's just off Senegal where we did the program with Mr. Watt.
That's correct. And we can also see Cape Verde and the Cape Verde Islands that my cursor, I think we can just barely see on screen. But he is, we can actually see the daily progress, which indicates a lack of wind. He hasn't been making too much progress, but day 815.
815 now. He's been 815 days out on the seas. Somebody should be able to work this thing and come in more tight on the image if we can. Can somebody, if we've it shows up better and you could come in tighter on it.
Yeah.
And so he's been 815. Isn't that interesting? He's right off the coast of Senegal, and we were just doing a program that will air tomorrow from this one with the president of Senegal.
We can also see two ships that are tracked here. Mike Dugan has put this together, part of Reed's ground team.
Here, now they're coming in on it. They can come in on it, and it's
great.
There.
Great. So we can
see Africa, yeah.
So we can see this is July 1st right here.
That's where he was, July 1st.
Yeah,
right.
These are noon positions. And then we can see that was day 802, and the day 803 would have been July 2nd, and so on up to 815.
I see. So it's 815 days he's been at sea. And that's with no resupply.
No resupply.
It's like a biosphere.
Yes,
in a very real sense on the ocean. And for he had to come in sight of land when they let Sonia off at Perth, as I understand.
That's right.
But he's been sailing out that, and I hear from Wave, his very stalwart brother, that he's feeling well, he's holding up, and he's looking fine and everything.
Yes, and his website is 1000days.net. So
yeah, let's
1000days.net.
That's right.
And so you can check the daily progress on this. But I know that we're taping today on July 16th. And,
correct.
Today is the 40th anniversary of the launch of Apollo 11 to the moon.
Not really. Really? Okay.
And 9:32 a.m., July 16th, 1969, Apollo 11 left the pad, destined to land the first humans on the moon on July 20th.
No kidding. I hadn't realized. I remember the day very, very well. It was an incredible thing then when they went to the moon on Apollo 11. That was really something. In fact, I can remember we got a special, was it color? Television.
Black and white on the first one.
It was black and white. Was it still? Yeah, okay. We got a big television. We all gathered in my living room, a lot of poets and people, technophiles and so forth. And we did it, and we had one, and so he's just coming, Neil Armstrong's just coming down off the ladder to put the first step on the moon. Everybody was with bated breath, and one of our friends, who was a wise guy, just as he went to hit the ground, pulled the plug on the television, and everybody went, ah! And then he plugged it right back in. It was like a moment of zen, you know,
Wow.
It sort of locked it in your mind. But it's good you're interested in this. But just one last little thing about Reed. I'm sorry. Sure. Apparently, we lost the connection. He had called. He's out there. He may call back. And so let's try to see if we can do that. If we could, certainly we want to offer out from everybody in New York, and I would say the world, a most hearty shout-out to Reed on the oceans of the world, sailing alone, a biosphere, pushing the limits of human endurance and capability in good spirit, manning the 70-foot gaff-rigged schooner out on the oceans of the world. It's a gigantic ecological achievement, living like a biosphere off the ocean. It's a major contribution that he's making to the advancement of human exploration.
Reed is, he will take on fish. He does take on fish, but he has to capture rainwater.
Yeah, he does.
For his drinking water. He grows bean sprouts to counter whatever effects of, as well as he has a store of food on board, but to counter any effects of scurvy and so forth through vitamin C.
Yeah.
And also people ask, well, how does he get power?
Yeah.
He has solar power units. His electrician, Rand Weeks, has worked very hard in setting him up for that. They also have a prop shaft generator, which is as a sail, essentially the prop that can be used for the engine. And if the engine's turned on, it can also pump the generator a bit. Yeah. And also for warmth, he has a coal stove. It's a tiny little stove.
I know.
But he went around Cape Horn, I believe, in January.
Yeah.
And he can get very cold conditions.
He sure can.
Of course, he's up by the equator now,
Yeah.
so very warm.
Yeah.
But also, he's been knocked down a couple times. Parts of the boat are wearing out, as you might expect.
He has to maintain everything,
Yeah,
rig all those sails and keep the sails and keep it in order. And
my father was always a sailor, and I remember as a child growing up that boats require a lot of maintenance work.
They do indeed, and he's a crew of one.
That's right.
He's on his own out there. It's a
major
major sort of drama.
It's very admirable. But also the analogy to space travel is a valid one from the standpoint of being away and having to be self-reliant.
That's right.
That if anything had happened in the moon voyages while they were on the moon, if they could not get back, then they would have been stranded.
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
one astronaut, in the Apollo missions, one astronaut would orbit the moon, sort of taking care of the return ship that had the heat shield, the command module and service module behind it with the rocket engine to get them back. But the lunar module down on the surface, everything had to work like clockwork in order for those missions to be accomplished. As well as seafaring missions in the past. Magellan is setting out in 1519 with 260 men, 5 ships, and only 19 returned on one ship. Actually, ship.
How many went with him?
260, and actually 60 men returned upon mutiny. They sailed one of the ships back.
Was that 1511, 1519?
1519. They returned, and 3 years later, 1521, Magellan died, of course, in the Philippines because he got involved in local politics and bringing Christianity to the natives there in the Philippines.
Best to avoid local politics.
Well, yeah, most
world,
likely, but but anyway, what they were sailing for, as what Columbus was sailing for, were the riches of the East and the Spice Islands, which were a secret really to the Arab traders, and then really a sort of a competition between Spain and Portugal. Magellan was Portuguese, but sailing under the Spanish flag.
Right.
A lot of story in that, but also later voyages. Of course, Captain Cook with the first chronometers, allowing the notion of longitude. Captain Cook was able to create, his crew was able to create a map of New Zealand that was accurate enough to be used up to about 50 years ago. So extraordinary. Once we understood the mathematical relationship of the Earth, our place in the universe, that we get to know it better and better.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. One last thing about he will be coming. Reed. He will be coming back. When, or do we know? The 1,000 days. He called it the Mars Odyssey. That's the time it takes to go to Mars within.
He has just under 200 days left.
Yeah.
Under a year. If he chooses to stay out longer, we'll see.
That'd be something, wouldn't it? 1,000 days, and then I think I'll stay a little longer, having a wonderful time.
Well, I guess if he gets used to it.
One last thing I'd like to say about him is he tried to get some major corporate support for his venture and so forth. I don't think he was able to do that the way he might have liked to have, but he's gotten in his corner some of the most intrepid and cyber-wise and technologically advanced people on the planet in his corner on this venture that he's done. It's been very much an individual initiative on his part, and I think he's to be lauded for that.
I think he's to be lauded. I think,
great guy.
I think
great guy.
He's
a hero.
He's an artist. He's an explorer. But he is an individual with his own idea of how to do something. I think typically that's been a difficult task. The Wright brothers were able to invent the airplane by working the problem over and over and solving the problems methodically that needed to be solved. And that they were able to do that sort of as two individuals, not completely in a vacuum. I mean, they knew of the research of others, but they were able to perfect things. But they also didn't get major corporate sponsorship.
Right. A lot of the people didn't, and often it's like that. Technology marches on. Things are moving so quickly. You're in a field now where it's just moving incredibly, in a credible rate, and you're in a very interesting position. I'd like to kind of talk to that, in fact, and call attention to the fact that you are a Director of Astrovisualization at the Rose
Center for Earth and Space.
Earth and Space. So you've got incredible databases that you can do, and I'd like to call attention to the fact that we have these major planetariums around the world, and this is, to my way of thinking, I'd like you to set me straight technologically and so forth. That seems to me our planetariums, where you have a 360-degree hemispheric or surround like you do in real life, are the largest video display screens in the world. And they are major technological developments, 6 arrays in order to bring that hemispheric view.
6 projections.
As well as sound. And it seems to me in a very real sense that in a sense we've had film, we've had black and white film, we get television, we had CinemaScope, we had IMAX, and it seems to me the planetariums, the large planetariums, I'd like you to talk a little bit about the universe of planetariums on planet Earth and so forth. And then the planetariums, in a certain sense, make even the IMAX look rather like Cineplex in terms of that, and that there's a tremendous future for this idea of planetarium-like display screens, various sizes and so forth. But I wonder if you could give us a context. There are about 35 or 50 of the large ones like the Rose, and maybe you could set up the global array of the very large planetariums a little bit, if you could, please.
Well, the planetarium started in the 1920s by the German company Zeiss, as a recreation of our experience in the night sky, with an optical mechanical projector, or what commonly people my age, your age,
Yeah.
will remember going to the planetarium, seeing this large, interesting mechanical machine in the middle of the room that projects beautifully the stars. And that recreates the sense that we have when we stand out in a beautiful open field. And if we're in the country, lucky enough to see a beautiful night sky, the stars above us, as if there's a bowl over our head.
Yeah.
The revolution in planetariums occurred a decade ago.
Okay.
With digital projection and the ability to actually do data visualization of our three-dimensional knowledge of the cosmos in a planetarium.
Will we say visualization of database information?
And so what I mean by that, and distinct from IMAX, I'm a great fan of IMAX, is that IMAX allows you to take a camera out into the known world and fly over, the plains of Africa, go anywhere, go diving under lakes in Antarctica, and fantastical things that they're able to do with this camera. Put it on the back of a speeding race car or under a fighter jet.
That's in the acquisition side of it.
Yes, and so just as a camera can go somewhere or into space, as they've done and created fantastic movies. There's a space station movie in stereo 3D.
Yeah, right.
So that and kudos to that completely. What a planetarium has typically done is do a data visualization, is show the map of the night sky. In other words, the recreation will be essentially immersive, as we call it, because it wraps all around you, just as sort of the night sky does, and that we can look in all different directions and see this image that wraps around us.
Okay, if I may, as we walk through the Earth, we have a planetarium projection that we are in. I mean, that's closer to us as we walk around on the Earth's surface. That's the way we have. We don't have a little window here, a little
very
window
much so.
there. We have this. It's closer to reality, and I suppose we're going to be getting to holography soon.
And
with
the
all
planetariums, being an adjunct or a sort of an offshoot of natural history museums, which were dedicated to giving a person a sort of experience of the greater world by creating dioramas.
Yes, exactly.
And so that a diorama essentially gives you that sense. You stand in front of, there's glass, but then behind that you have a taxidermy animal, you have the environment there, and then a glorious painting that's seamlessly blended with, it's almost like a stage set of another part of the world, but it's accurate and it's an authentic recreation. I like to say that our lions in the Serengeti Plain, we don't show New Jersey behind them. We're showing a real place in the Serengeti Plains in Africa.
I know.
And so to that end, what a planetarium would do is recreate essentially what our view of the night sky was at any given time and the positions of the planets. And so with that on a technically accurate, authentic way, you could recreate, say the view on Thursday night, and there's Venus up in the sky, and there's the crescent moon, and the sun sets accurately at a certain time. In that tradition, the new digital planetarium, essentially what we've done is take the dome, and we're projecting motion graphics on it. These are computer graphics, which are an accurate depiction of the map of the cosmos that we understand.
And you can get database stuff from NASA. And
we get databases of the cosmos that are academically collected by from all around the world.
Right.
And what I mean by that is NASA will fund missions that will go up, and they will map the cosmos. A European Space Agency funded a mission over a decade ago called Hipparcos, named after the first Greek astronomer who basically made the first star map. And that mission cataloged distances to stars, 118,000 stars. And these are local stars to us in a galaxy that numbers hundreds of billions of stars.
Yeah, billions.
So we're taking this tiny little sample, but it's our local sample.
Right.
And the stars that are closer to us, we can get a more accurate distance to, and so on. But that's just one example. There are other catalogs by other scientific groups that are interested in, say, dim stars or bright stars, or what happens to stars when they die.
Or images from the Hubble? I mean, can they be incorporated in the
Images-
show?
well,
You're like an impresario. You're putting on a show, and its educational
Yes.
content is incredible.
And we've just finished our 4th show
Okay.
that we've worked 2 years on, funded by NASA's Division for Heliophysics at headquarters.
Helio, the sun?
Yes, and
Yeah.
NASA is interested in the sun
Yeah.
because the sun is a star.
Yes, it
We
is.
live with a star. In fact, we were funded by the Living with a Star program, Dick Fisher and Lika Gurutakrita, and at headquarters. And to that end, we're interested in stars. We're interested in the sun because the sun has an environment that we live in.
Absolutely.
And
It's all
that
thermodynamics.
We are protected to some degree by the fact that we have a magnetic field around us. We have evolved under this magnetic field. Life has evolved. But as we go into space, and as the astronauts, Apollo 11, 40 years ago, flew to the moon, they flew outside this protective envelope.
Yes.
And that protective envelope of the magnetosphere is something that it can't be taken lightly, especially in space travel, because the hardware on Apollo, we could not have afforded a large enough spacecraft to have enough mass to absorb radiation if there had been a solar flare or a coronal mass ejection, which sends out tremendous amounts of radiation, causing large auroras that we see in the Earth and so forth, that could have been lethal to the astronauts and that have to be taken into account for advanced spaceflight beyond the Earth. And this is why that's a very important part of NASA. But they funded us to do this latest show. It's called Journey to the Stars.
How many shows have you had on this order? This is a major thing.
Yes, we make major productions. We have Passport to the Universe, our first show. Search for Life, which is our second show. When was that put together
and launched? And
that was 10 years ago.
Did you launch that at the Grumman's Chinese Theater with spotlights?
No.
But you should. What I'm saying, they should have an Academy Awards thing or something.
We opened in early 2000, so almost a decade ago, with this arguably the first planetarium show that was rendered from data. That was essentially true data visualization of the three-dimensional layout of the universe. And we worked very hard to create the three-dimensional visit to the Orion Nebula, which we actually come back to in Journey to the Stars, narrated by Whoopi Goldberg.
That's the most recent?
Yes.
Okay.
So our most recent one, Journey to the Stars. But I'll just go back. The four shows that we've done were Passport to the Universe, which talked about the three-dimensional layout of the universe, where we showed the stars, the galaxy, and the large-scale structure of the universe, and then come back to Earth. Search for Life, which was what do we know about life in the universe?
Okay, we don't know much. We don't know very much about life in the universe.
Our third show, which just closed, is Cosmic Collisions, which talked about the role of collisions in shaping the universe and the structures of the universe.
Okay.
So it's really the fact that gas collides and comes together to make stars, and that stars and gas come together to make galaxies, and that worlds, planets that come together because of the stuff that surrounds stars, comes together and gets that collides and collides and collides until we build worlds. We're sitting on one called the Earth, and that then we're here because of all of that process.
Yeah, and the last one, the one that's just
Earthbound,
closing now,
but
is
we're
it still up or
starborn.
is it just over? Just over?
Our new show, Journey to the Stars, has just opened, and it's
it just opened. Okay.
It opened July 4th. It's narrated by Whoopi Goldberg.
Right on.
It's a wonderful. It's an absolutely wonderful read by Whoopi Goldberg. Our curators, Mordecai Mark McLow, who's our department chair for astrophysics and for the Division of Earth Planetary Science at our museum, and Ben Oppenheimer, who's our newest our curator in astrophysics.
Very good.
Together, along with a fantastic production staff that we had this time at the museum.
And now you all put that together, or do you have some talent from Lucas Studios or anything, or how was it done?
We had everything was done in New York with two exceptions. The two exceptions were major collaborations with what we do is we visualize science from all different scientific participants. They send us observations, say, of the sun, so that we have people like Alan Teitel from Lockheed Martin, who oversees a whole crew of people who helped us with the images that are coming from the satellites, such as the STEREO mission and from the SOHO mission that observe the sun. But then the internal workings, such as Yuri Tumray from the University of Colorado, astrophysicist, and his graduate student Ben Brown, who prepared the simulations of the convective outer third of the sun.
Okay, that's getting
these things.
Yeah.
I can get specific on this, but I want to emphasize that we put together into this 20-minute, 24-minute presentation essentially observations of the universe and also the simulations, the numerical simulations, which are the state of the art from a spate of scientists across the world, plus these two collaborations that came in internationally that were actually rendered elsewhere. One being the National Astrophysical Observatory of Japan. We have a simulation of galaxies building our Milky Way. That simulation, before it was visualized, before it turned into pictures, took over a year to simulate.
Okay.
And also the first stars of the universe, Tom Abel and Rolf Kahler from Germany working on that and supplying the imagery, which we then repurpose and I direct, saying we want this and that. So there are conditions that I, as a director, are responsible for to compose all of that.
Now, one of the problems that we live in a universe bound by time, at least in every day. Like we have only 58 minutes for this program. There's so much we could touch. And one of the things you have this wonderful fellow there now, astrophysicist deGrasse, what is it, Tyson?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
And
he's doing a lot. And another thing I want to say, if I may, you're talking planetarium and the history of it. You call it the Rose Center. What is it called again? The Rose Center of Earth and
Space.
Earth and space. So you have also, within what you're doing and what can be projected within these planetariums, you are also dealing with Earth processes. It's not all the universe. And that's the traditional thing with the planetarium. But the planetarium is a visual display screen that you can have Earth processes, ocean, Earth. And what the educational potentiality of that is absolutely staggering to me. And I'm wondering also now with carbon-60 coming and the nanotechnology, the advancement, we're getting more and more capability. Is there going to be more of these planetariums? Will it get down to where a planetarium could become part of a house, a abode structure? There will be a planetarium that will be part of the way in which housing is constructed and so forth, because the ability to bring educational material to the people is absolutely increasing exponentially, and that kind of thing. And I congratulate you on those dioramas. I have a trouble with the American History Museum of Natural History because when I get in there, I never can get out because it's so damned interesting. But it's wonderful, the perception of this. But some of those things quickly about the future of planetariums within the world society, and also dealing not only with the wonders of space and the universe, but also Earth processes and educational medium for the world.
Well, our shows, as our major visitor experience of the museum, address fundamental aspects of astronomy, astrophysics, in how they relate to us in the world.
The Earth.
The Earth is a planet that circles a star,
and it has creatures,
and that we are spaceborn. We are spaceborn, yet earthbound. And what I say as earthbound is that we rely on this system. There is only one planet that we can ever come back to and call home. We may depart this planet for parts beyond. I expect that parts of the society will, but that ultimately this is our home. We need to take care of it. It is a spaceship.
Right. Mr. Fuller had
planet,
that to say. He coined that term.
And I had the great honor of meeting him before he died. I
Wonderful
know you interviewed
man.
him.
I think he's an inspiration to every thinking person.
Very much. But he did call the planet Earth, spaceship Earth.
That's right.
And
wrote an operating manual for it.
That's right.
Yeah. Right.
So just to point out that this three-dimensional knowledge of the universe, we now know where the planets are at any one given time. We have to do that to shoot spacecraft to them and orbit Saturn or land on Mars.
Yes.
Travel to the moon and back. So we now have a whole generation, or 50 years really, of sending things out into space, into the planets, into the solar system. And now we have a much greater knowledge thanks to computational capabilities. So the speed of computers and also the automation of telescopes is that we can create these large databases of the three-dimensional structure of the universe. And
Yeah,
our
but not
knowledge
the
of that.
yes,
Now,
yes, but
that
Earth itself,
Earth-
history, people, history, lessons in history that are not dealing with the broader universe, but are dealing with Earth processes, also can become part of databases that will be projected on these planetary things as an educational device.
I'd like to point out that whereas the planetarium of old was looking up at the sky and looking outward, that now, since we can go up and out, that we have to look back and see ourselves in it. So,
all right, fine.
And Spaceship Earth as a concept by Fuller was really a concept that he mentioned after, or perhaps the sense of the space program reaching outward into space, is that our view will see ourselves contextual to the rest of the universe.
Yeah.
And so that's the meaning of Spaceship Earth, that we are a part of the universe. Our history on this tiny little ball is just a significant part of the universe because we are aware of the universe and can map the universe here.
That's right.
And
that's right.
We can now display this in planetariums.
All right,
three-dimensionally because we can use the dome as an immersive display.
That's right. It's a visual.
And because of computers with gaming technology, essentially, is that multiple users can log on and see the same thing.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out that not only our shows that are movies that are distributed, and our show from the American Museum of Natural History can be seen in about 40 venues around the world.
Wonderful.
Planetariums and science centers, the major planetariums.
Okay.
However, the three-dimensional database, which we call Digital Universe, we maintain this database. It is from academic sources worldwide.
Right. Okay. Good.
But we put it into one common source.
Right.
You can, if you want to
now we're going to
examine this, you go to haydenplanetarium.org.
Spell it.
Hayden. Planetarium. So Hayden Planetarium is one word. .org, and you can download the digital universe with a viewer. To look at. You won't see the Earth. I could go on details about that, but suffice to say that the software that we are developing allows us to take the digital universe and display it at multiple planetariums around the world and view it simultaneously. So I could control, say, the database from New York and what we see of it, and it could be seen simultaneously around the world in planetariums.
That's wonderful.
And we are doing this more and more. The first digital planetarium in Africa, in Ghana, in January opened, and I was able to give a talk to them. Jacob Ashong, who's a professor, retired, who has built the first planetarium in Ghana. Also Medellin, Colombia, known until just a few years back as a capital of drug trade, is now investing heavily to put into the ghettos libraries and places. Andres Roldan down there has had me guest lecture.
That's good.
And
I did my master's thesis on the Medellin, Antioquia province and the industrial development
I've taken 2 computers to Makara High School in Siem Reap, Cambodia, and after visiting Angkor Wat, realizing it was a Hindu cosmology, this was really a Hindu cosmogony of the universe, essentially, that these temples were built 1,000 years ago, and the teacher from Cambodia has actually controlled the Hayden Planetarium from Cambodia.
Okay, good. Now back again to the thing. You keep bringing it out. The planetariums were dealing with space. Most people in the world are more interested in what's going on this planet than they are in the universe.
And
you've got a wonderful, good technology, but it can't be limited just to the stars and to the universe. Earthly processes and things that are going on within the biosphere and these kind of things can be used as content for these screens that exist and the technology that came for that. And what degree is it? I noticed Mr. Tyson is on television a great deal talking about the wonders of science and so forth. And I'm talking about that. Could there not be the educational potential? What about the idea that it's going to get down to the individual level that there will be a unit within a housing unit of a planetarium projection of educational material on
There
all
already
kinds
is.
of matter.
There already is.
Shakespeare, all kinds of social things other than just databases
Okay.
of the universe.
Let's
If you understand.
Let's just limit this to the moment for viewing the Earth. Everyone now knows of Google Earth and their ability to access tremendous databases, commercial databases in the case of Google, being an advertising agency essentially in the digital age. But the ability one can also layer on Google Earth, or in the case of this software, which we see here running from this laptop. Now I just want to describe that this is similar in ways to Google Earth, and that different databases can be loaded and so on. If I could turn
now,
things
let me
on
ask
and
you,
off.
Carter, are we going to show a film for a while? Maybe we could dim the lights and get a little clearer?
Yes, we can.
Could someone come from the control room and dim down the lights, Willie, so that we'll see it a little bit clearer? And this is going to be like a show of the Earth. And
yes,
so
and
forth.
this is something I will.
So maybe they could come in, dim the
this
lights.
This is something I will be
Okay.
interactively controlling.
Okay. Okay. Good. So you could go ahead and start, and then they could come and dim the lights. It'll make it a little clearer. But we've got this going.
My point being is that until we dim the lights, I'll just point out
if you
the
could,
Earth
Willie,
is
please. Thank
bright
you.
enough
Willie
for
can
us.
dim the lights. It'll stand out a little bit better. And then you can explain it. Here they come. Dim them right down.
Great.
Maybe.
Thanks.
Way down.
Great.
So it'll stand. Okay, it stands out much better now on the screen.
What we see here is an image, a satellite image that's taken every day, actually. And a colleague of ours, well, actually, this comes from, it's gathered from NASA's
now you're controlling
satellite.
that zoom in?
I am actually flying this live.
Wonderful, yeah.
And so here we can come in over Gibraltar, for example.
Right.
And if we look out, we're seeing the image increase in resolution, similar to what Google does. Let me just turn this. Let me here. Just give us a view. I'm going to fly over. Let us fly over a little bit of Italy here. We see Sicily here.
Yeah.
And
beautiful.
Sardinia and Corsica up here. Right. And here come the Peloponnese and the island of Crete, and so on. Right. And but I can interactively control this. This is the same software that we use that when we do interactive presentation at the planetarium.
Right.
We do this every month, actually, for what we call the virtual universe.
Okay.
And that's 6:30 to 7:30 the first Tuesday of every month.
That's where you touch it with Reed, don't you? You try to?
Yes. And if I'm presenting, we have others. Brian Abbott is my colleague who maintains the database.
There's
for the digital
Turkey,
universe.
right? We're in the Middle East now. There's Cyprus. You can see what a beautiful globe. What a beautiful thing.
What I want to emphasize is, okay,
I'm a geographer. I'm really impressed with this. What a great tool.
Whereas Google Earth has a similar aspect, this is the entire universe. And so this image was actually September 8th of 2008. And I just have it from convenience.
Now you're
I
going
could have
into
today.
Daylight and not darkness. Yeah.
I'm going to bring us around. Let's bring
cloud
us up
cover,
over the pond.
And this was done by, how was it? This was done photographically?
You can see that there are discontinuities. You can actually see a discontinuity here.
Right.
However, it's not that discontinuous.
Yeah,
and that's because the satellite orbits the Earth every hour and a half.
Okay.
As it does, it acquires a swath, a picture, and that is then remapped onto the globe. My colleague, Lucien Plessa at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, takes what's gathered at another NASA center, at NASA Goddard, from this is the Terra satellite view. Notice here you get, that's a sun glint off the ocean as it travels across. But then I could also select another data layer if I'd like, and this is from Landsat. And Landsat allows us a very clear image, actually, which I could come into
now
New
we
York
can see where Reed is now.
I could, but let me,
go ahead.
We've talked a lot about Reed.
Yeah, we have.
Actually come in on just
I
New
love
York
Reed.
to show
He's
you this.
Beautiful.
So if we come in, we can see that this is obviously made of a mosaic of images at a high resolution. And we come in, but I want to show you something specific. And so I'm just going to, let's see. We can now see this is Long Island.
Okay.
And if I
Where
come
we are
in
New
close
York,
enough, we're coming in on Manhattan. I want to emphasize at the 400th anniversary of the sailing of Henry Hudson in the Half Moon up the Hudson River, is that this island of Manhattan was inhabited by Native Americans, but was really forested territory. And that from essentially Bowling Green to Spuyten Duyvil, just above the George Washington Bridge, is 22 miles.
Is that right? Okay.
Now, if we tip the Earth over to look from this vantage point to the horizon, we will see how thin the atmosphere appears.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it's a little jumpy, but that's because I'm spanning screens here. But the atmosphere trails off to black.
It does,
at 20 miles.
Okay, really? 20 miles, about the size
kilometers.
Okay, that's a good thing.
If you stood Manhattan up on Bowling
that
Green,
would be the height of the atmosphere.
Is the height of the visible atmosphere. The atmosphere extends above that, but
it gets very thin.
The atmosphere is, and if you ever travel in a plane and look at the readouts that we get these days with the data, you see that all you have to be is about at 30,000 feet, and that the Earth is. It's very cold up there. It's about minus 50 degrees Celsius, or about the same in Fahrenheit.
What's the Kelvin temperature of the sun? And then you got and what's the Kelvin? We can't get to absolute zero, but they measure it in Kelvin.
You have,
and we are within such a narrow range that all life forms are involved on this. It's almost impossible that this could have ever occurred within such a narrow range of temperature.
Let me show the magnetosphere, because we talked about that. This is a visualization of the magnetosphere, and if I was to add into this just some satellites, Earth satellites, communication satellites. Let me turn on the geostationary satellites that we'll see here. If I begin to animate this a little faster, we should see there's a, here, I'll just let that continue. Here we see a ring of geostationary satellites that are about 22,000 miles out from Earth. And my point of showing these to you is, and I'll put Earth back in the center, is that we can see that these satellites, they orbit in a ring.
These are man-made satellites that we put up, it's getting crowded up there.
Well, it is. And Arthur C. Clarke, who was
visionary.
Who wrote the visionary, science and science fiction writer. He wrote the screenplay for 2001: Space Odyssey. That he invented this in 1945. And he said at 22,000 miles, a satellite will orbit at the same rotation rate as Earth. And I met him in 2002. He said,
"You did,
Yes, I flew to Sri Lanka." He said where he lived in Colombo. He said, "I wish I had patented that."
He didn't get a patent on that. Geosynchronous.
But my point here is that the geosynchronous satellites orbit just outside the sort of protective envelope you see of the magnetosphere. I'll turn those off for the moment. So that we're now seeing. So here we see what's called the magnetosphere of Earth. There's a bow shock in front. This is the solar wind comes in and flows around this impediment of a magnetic field of Earth, and in fact drags the outer exterior farther out. And,
you know, they've had a thing in that they're going to be able to maybe do Earth cooling by having stuff put on orbit around to cut down on some of the solar, if there's global warming. Did you see that in Nature magazine? And there would be trillions of little things that would be orbiting in order to cool the Earth if the global warming is really serious. It's a thing that could be done.
All sorts of ideas. I just want to keep on this vector. I just want to show that this is the orbit of the Moon, 250,000 miles. This is the length of the magnetotail, which stretches out just about to the Moon. But astronauts flying beyond this are in harm's way because you're out of the protective bubble of the magnetosphere.
I'll be damned.
And, but this is 250,000 miles to the Moon.
Yes.
Light travels at just under this distance in 1 second. So we see the Moon about a second and a half in the past. And the Sun is 93 million miles that we can see now out here, and there's an orbit of Venus and Mercury.
Right.
That 93 million miles is traversed at the speed of light in about just over 8 minutes. So here we see the solar system. Now we see the Earth is nothing more than a dot. And we have the planets that we're seeing here. This is Mercury, this is Venus, number 3 is Earth, number 4 is Mars, and beyond that we show in blue. This is the largest asteroid called Ceres. But you can see a tremendous gulf of distance between the inner 4 planets and then Jupiter.
Yeah, Jupiter
which is number 5.
Giant, yeah.
And
what's
then,
that one way out? Is that Saturn?
This is Saturn,
Yeah.
and then we have Uranus and Neptune. And then beyond this, the
Used to have
smaller icy Kuiper Belt worlds that have been recently relegated to beyond, or I should say beyond planet status, and that's Pluto, and even larger than Pluto, Eris. So these are emissaries of a much larger population of icy planetary-like worlds out there. But we're keeping planets as a category really for the major planets. And you can see the major planets, if I come in, all these orbits illustrate a plane, pretty much
Plane
a
of the ecliptic.
Plane of the ecliptic,
Yeah.
and that is essentially the fact that as our sun formed and material swirling around collapsed into a plane. Beyond this we have the stars, and if I move out far enough, we now depict the sun as bright as it should be, because we had to dim it down when we were in close. And the nearest star to us, Alpha Centauri, is about the same brightness. It's actually a triple system, but now we can move away, and as the stars now come together, as we perceivably come together, as we pull out of the galaxy, we begin to see now the galaxy is this much larger system, and then the galaxies beyond. The galaxy, our galaxy, is an immense system. There are upwards to 200 to 300 billion stars. It takes us 250 million years to make one circuit. We've been around 20 times, or 250
You mean
million
the Earth
years.
itself?
The Earth and the Sun.
What's that, 3.8 billion years?
No, we've
Four?
been the oldest moon rocks are about 4.5 billion years old.
4.5 billion, yeah.
Which indicate that the Sun and solar physics models that the Sun's been around about 5 billion years.
Okay,
So,
and the universe, as far as we know, 13.7 billion
that's
years
right.
to Big Bang.
That's right. So if we look at just the distance of where we are to the center, light has taken about 26,000 years to reach from the center of the galaxy to us. The galaxy itself would take light 100,000 years to traverse.
They had the WAM satellite or something, and they could get a picture of the shock wave within about 200,000 years of its occurrence, 13.7 billion years ago. And the CERN thing is going to show us within a second, I believe, of the Big Bang 13 point. That's a hell of a good ability to take the measure of things, isn't it? That's becoming characteristic of human knowledge.
As computer speed has increased, as human intellectual capability has been brought together by things such as the World Wide Web, that this increase in knowledge and speed has allowed us, with our methods and tools of science, to really put together this three-dimensional map. You are looking at the real distribution of galaxies as we see here.
Now that's all
color-coded, color-coded for structure. This is the Virgo cluster right here. It's 50, 60 million light years away from us. So we come out here to the edges of this color-coded system at about 300 million light years. And beyond that, we have the larger surveys. And they haven't covered the whole sky. That's why parts of this, it looks like a bow tie. Or
where
do
they get the data from? Where's the data
Let me just describe this as the Sloan Digital Sky Survey and the 2-degree field survey. And then beyond that, the quasars. And beyond that, the WMAP results, or the image of what we could see of the universe when it had cooled down essentially at about 375 or 378,000 years after the flash of the Big Bang, when the universe had expanded large enough.
That's from the WAM.
Cooled down.
Yeah.
It's not the WAM. It's
not.
a WMAP.
Okay.
It's the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe.
Right. Okay.
Is for Dave Wilkinson, who
that's right.
From Princeton, who came up with the measurement technique on this.
And they got a thing called LISA or a solar array, and they're going with CERN, from CERN, and they're going to be getting a picture of the shock wave
essentially even closer.
Even as it occurred, almost.
Right. But
incredible.
In this manner, what I've just shown you, what I've just briefly demonstrated when I come back here to the Earth now, is this this three-dimensional knowledge. Now, I project this in the dome at the Hayden Planetarium.
Yeah. Now, how does it come
interactively, like you see here? However,
now, how does it work?
But it also works by it's interactive 3D graphics.
Yeah.
And displaying this digital knowledge of the universe. But it works as we see right here, right now, in this presentation,
on a flat screen,
as a flat screen.
Yeah, right.
Now, it's more immersive in a planetarium, of course.
Yes.
However, the same information can be conveyed whether it's two-dimensional on a flat screen or whether it's all three-dimensional information, but it's conveyed either in a rectangular format like this. It can be shared with classrooms around the world.
Right, right. And this can be shared.
I'm training staff right now at the Beijing Planetarium with this.
Good.
I've never met these people.
Right.
But I'm training them, and we're going to do a program together in September.
Wonderful.
On the digital Earth that's happening there in Beijing.
Amazing.
But we will participate. In the future, we're talking about classrooms and planetariums being linked up more and more.
How about in the household?
So that scientists and in the household.
It'll become an architectural feature.
I do this from my household.
Okay.
I'm able to.
No, I'm talking about the planetarium themselves. A room that is hemispheric as built into the architecture.
Harold, I am able to talk to planetariums around the world from my bed. And I've been doing this for 2 years now. And that means that the receiver or the transmitter could be in bed, they could be in the field, they could be in their laboratory, and they could be, this is meant to be a platform for science,
right?
So that scientists around the world, wherever they are, as long as they have internet access, can talk to the world of audiences, of students, and those that are interested in science.
Wonderful, that's wonderful, and we only begin to scratch the surface of the implications of this, and I do think it's going to become the planetarium feature that has come out of astrophysics and that kind of work. Congratulate Mr. What's his name, Tyson? Who's heading up the museum on the work he's doing, and so forth. And it's also, we've only just begun to scratch the surface of getting down into Earth processes that'll be part of the content other than this fantastic work that's been done.
We can layer all sorts of
and I do think, I can see it becoming a feature of living architecture, a planetarium with the ability to have surround educational content. It's just absolutely staggering. We just begun to touch the surface. We're running out of time, unfortunately, Carter. So good you were able to put this together. So good. One last shout out to Reed out there, a man to be celebrated by all and backed up by us all. Congratulations to all of you at the Natural History Museum and your colleagues in the planetarium realm. Yeah. I think we're going to have to do more because I see that becoming part of architecture, the building of these capabilities, because the nanotechnology is coming, carbon-60 is coming, the ability to have these kind of things that are available only to large institutions is going to become available to the citizens as an educational thing that is going to have a wide variety of processes and educational programming is going to be available to them.
The ability to contextualize all this information into a larger universal view.
And you could even get
the great traditions
you could even get it become tremendously entertaining in the sense of movie fare that would present it in this way. A major contribution of our leaders of the planetarium realm. Happy to have been able to share that with you. Thank you for all that good work.
Thank you.